Hello, welcome to the Dice Tower. I'm Wendy Yi.
And I'm Chris Yi.
And today we have the Grand Austria Hotel Roll and Ride game, High Society.
High season.
Season?
Yes.
I thought it was society, so I was like, all fancy pinky up.
Nope. Well, the season is fancy, I suppose. Well, anyway, this is a roll and ride version of Grand Austria Hotel.
It is.
It really is. We'll show you how it plays. You can see what the similarities are. We'll talk about what things are missing and what things did carry over, and then we'll give you our thoughts.
Grand Austria Hotel Roll and Ride High Season takes place across 7 rounds. We've got these round trackers right here. And on each round, players are going to draft 2 dice. So we're going to roll all the dice. So everyone's going to draft 1 die, and that action will be taken at whatever level the dice are, or based on how many dice there are. So if I would take a level 6 action, I would take it at a 3 times whatever this action is right here. We have our round tracker. This is our end game scoring right here. These are our rooms that we're trying to fill. When you prepare a room, you will circle the little doorknob over here, and when you fill a room, you will cross it out. As you see, some of these already come pre-filled. You have your money down here, which you can track by circling, and you can use by crossing out. We have some loans down here if you need extra money, but they are minus points, as you see underneath. We also have these Emperor tracks over here. These are going to score at the end of the 3, 5th, and 7 rounds. If you are in the dark side, you're going to lose this many points. If you are in the light, you don't necessarily get anything unless you make it to the very last spot on the track. If you're the first person there, then you can get this bonus over here. Down here we have the employees, and these are double-sided, and there's various and sundry tiles of these that you can get throughout the game. But they give you bonuses and benefits that you can get by taking the employee action, and they actually have a cost right above them. And then when you gain them, you just check off saying, hey, I own this guy. Now that you have the gist of how the game works, let's talk about the actions. This first space over here lets you prepare a room. The second lets you fill a room for a discount. You can only ever fill 1 room at a time. However, you can prepare multiple rooms based on dice amount. This action over here lets you choose, hey, do I want to prepare rooms or fill rooms? So essentially these actions over here. Action number 4 lets you move up on the Emperor track, or it lets you get money based on the amount of dice. Number 5 over here lets you purchase employees. That's where you check them off and get their benefit for a discount of however many dice are over here. And then finally, the 6th action, you can pay $1 and you can take any one of these actions at the strength of the 6th action over here. So last we have endgame scoring. This right here, let's go down it real quick. So you get any endgame points for employees that you have that give you endgame scoring. This over here is for endgame blue rooms. One thing I didn't explain is that if you have a full set of rooms that are filled in, for example, these 4 yellow ones together, then you get some sort of bonus down here based on how many rooms you filled in. The blue ones happen to give you endgame points over here. Then you get points for each room that's in your building. Every level gives you a different amount. You get points negative or positive for the Emperor track over here. You can also trade in $3 for a point for however many you have. So right now we happen to have 2 points worth of money. Then every row and column that is completely filled in will give you points based on these outside numbers over here, and then any negative points for taking loans throughout the game. And that is how you play Grand Hotel Roll and Ride High Season. So this definitely has a lot of mechanisms that were in the original game.
Dice drafting, boom, got you covered.
Those tracks of it, the tracks don't reset, but they kind of do because they're, you move on to a different one for a different level.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then putting people in rooms, right? This is shown more in the abstract sense. If you've never played the original Grand Austria Hotel, we probably should have covered, you can play this just fine, right?
Yeah.
The little nods of familiarity are there, which is great. But then also this is just a competent roll and write game. This is executed well. You have the different actions laid out, and they all make sense, and it's all right there.
Yeah, I think that's what's nice about it is that it has a lot of similarities, but you don't have to have known the original. But if you do, you get to enjoy a little bit more of like, ooh, okay, I see how they did that in this version. For example, the dice work the same, but there's different dice actions. So I have always enjoyed that in Grand Austria Hotel. Mm-hmm. The hey, I pull a die and then I get as many actions as based on the amount of dice that are of that number. And I've always found that to be a cool action. It's funny because because the actions are similar but a little bit different, I almost felt like it was really hard to get money in one of those games because no 4s got rolled, or it was really hard to prep rooms because no 1s got rolled. And I know the original had that happen as well, but for some reason it felt a little escalated in this.
It feels tighter when the dice rolls don't land on the actions that you kind of want in that particular round. There's very few rounds. There's 7 rounds of the game, right? And I know that the original also only had a limited number of rounds as well, but I feel like there's, and I'm going to say this is going to be a funny statement, this is a roll and write game in which there is lots of cascading, right? Gone Shun Clever forever changed the landscape of roll and write games, I think, right? Okay,
for the better.
For the better, yeah, that's true, right? Okay, well, I'm going to take the action to put someone in a room, which I cross it off, and I get this bonus, which lets me move up the Emperor track, which then, because I move to a space that lets me fill another room, I fill this room, which lets me fill another room. You get those exciting roll and write moments, and I think that's great. But despite all of that, I feel like in the original game, the much bigger and much longer board game, you could kind of customize and tailor fit the cascading that you wanted, and so that you had a little bit more of a chance to be like, I need to take guests into rooms that will give money, that will fill in the gaps where I'm feeling a little bit short. And it's all there in this game, but because it's kind of already laid out on the map, maybe it's harder to pull off the things that you need when you feel short on cash, like you said, or when you're like, oh, I really need to be able to prep a few extra rooms, but those bonuses aren't close to where I am already in the hotel.
I think it's because in the original, bonuses were tied to cards, so you could draft the card that you wanted, and you may pay more or less depending on where it's at in the lineup, but you could get whatever card you wanted, whereas this, they're intrinsically tied to the room. So you're like, okay, I prepped the room that lets me get another blue room for $2 less. I have to wait till I have another blue room prepped that's worth any sort of money so that I can then, make that worth it. Otherwise, the cascading doesn't happen. And that did happen to me a couple times that I was like, sweet, nope, I have to wait.
Yeah, I'll wait off a little bit.
But the dice tell me to do it now, but the cascading tells me to do it later. Do I wait? Oh no, I can never afford that room again because the dice told me to do it now.
I think we should. I'll just make one more comparison to the original game, and I think we should talk a little bit more about this game on its own merits.
I think so.
And I think the thing that I find really notably missing is in the original game you had to feed guests. You took guest cards, you drafted them, and then you had to feed them streusel and cake and coffee and wine.
Yeah. And
so you had a lot of moments of just like, I think that the dice actions were a little bit more varied, so you could say like, oh well. I don't have a room yet ready, but I can get a bunch of cake this round.
Yeah.
And so it was fun to be able to just like feed those people. And so you had like smaller little actions that felt gratifying. And that's not here in this game. Probably for the better, because this game should have a smaller footprint and be quicker paced and everything.
That's fair. I did miss the cubes, the cute little cubes that are not upgraded. They're just cubes, but they're so cute.
Right.
Okay, so game on its own, all the boards are multi-sided. So you've got your little helper dudes, your like employees that are double-sided, and you can pick whatever ones of those you want. And then your actual player boards are double-sided. The rooms change, the track changes, like stuff changes on all of those things. How'd you feel about that?
I like the fact that you have a different board and you can choose between the employees and they're not like tied to each other. But also just give me whatever random board. I can't really look at a board layout. There's so much dense iconography on there that I'm not going to like look at either side and be like, I will choose this one strategically. It's just kind of like, oh, this one.
I know my first game, I was like, oh, hey, I like this end game scoring benefit. I'm going to go for that employee and I'm going to check him off and I'm going to make that happen. And then I didn't do a single one of those things the entire game because my actual rooms were not really laid out for that. And then the dice roll, I don't know, it just didn't happen. So then the next time we played, I was like, you know what? I'm going to change my employees, but I'm going to keep those same rooms because gosh darn it, I know where that stuff is.
You know the layout.
I know how those rooms cascade. And as soon as you flip it over, you're like, oh, well now blues don't lead to -2 blues. Like now reds do. Yeah, so it's funny.
It's funny. I think it's a good feature overall that the hotels are different so that you don't end up creating the same meta strategy every time.
I think that's fair.
But I don't know if I could really strategically look at my board and be like, this is what I'm going to do, because it's just visually a lot. Because, as you said, bonuses are tied to rooms. And so it makes sense, right? I think it's well done for the most part. And I like the little things that are like column bonuses if you fill an old column. Rows, there's 2 different rows.
Yeah.
it's not super clear from the get-go that staircase that separates the two halves of your hotel, like those rooms are still adjacent for adjacency purposes, but not for scoring purposes and such. That's fine. I like the bonuses. I like filling in a whole block. I like drafting dice. I like that the number 6 dice draft is a wild action, but it costs $1. All those things that I think make this a good, competent game.
I think so. I really enjoy the the employee powers. Mm-hmm. I enjoy being able to choose those and say, hey, I'm going to make this action cheaper, or I'm going to make this scoring objective now available. I'm going to get this one-time bonus where I get to fill 2 rooms. That's exciting. I enjoy that. To me, that's like one of the most fun parts of the game.
That's the variety that you feel.
Yes, and It's the engine building. At least those ongoing benefits is the engine building part.
Yeah.
So I think that's fun.
So the thing I noticed about this game is the designer name on the box. So there's the original Simone Luciani and Virginia Gigli. And there's a third new name that caught my eye, Ryan Hendrickson. I thought...
Related to Jimi?
Jimi Hendrickson?
Yes.
Who's that?
Jimi Hendrix. Okay.
Jimi Hendrix song.
I was like, what shirt are you wearing?
Back from that aside.
Okay.
So Ryan Hendrickson has kind of made a name for himself. He also worked on the Joan of Arc Orleans roll and write. The drawn right, and then Pirates of Maracaibo. And I was like, oh, he makes a lot of these like variations of existing games out there. And I think, hey, that's a cool niche to fall into.
Yeah, you know?
I think my thoughts on this game are going to be very similar to what I felt about Joan of Arc, the Orleans roll and write game, drawn right, in which it does a good job of representing a lot of the aspects of the original board game in a roll and write that feel fun. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to feel as robust of an experience, but you will have it in a quicker time frame. And so that's kind of what this one accomplishes. If you want that, I think this is a great product, a good roll and write game. Perhaps a little bit visually busy, but everything is there. Clemens Franz's artwork is silly as always, but his iconography, as the kids say, on fleek. So
we also discovered there's a couple of designers in there. If you peek through the characters, you're like, oh, that's definitely Gigli. I can't ever pronounce these names.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I feel like this is missing some of that heart and soul of what I really enjoy about Grand Austria Hotel.
Cake and streusel.
Because I want more of a game, and I love that it's more of a game.
You're like Ariel. You want more.
Yes, I do. And there's a little bit more pivoting that you can do throughout the base Grand Austria Hotel. But I do think for Roll and Write, this is a lot of fun. And I think that it's clever that it is related to all of those things. That way, literally, we sat down, we're like, okay, we know the base game, or the original game. And we sat down, and Chris was like, okay, Wendy, these are like this part of the game. Oh, okay, I get it. This part of the game. Oh, I get it. And this part. See how those change? Yeah, I get it. Okay, let's play.
Right.
So if you know the original, it made the game very easy to teach. It does give you some of those fun little vibes, but it is missing that heart and soul.
Right, I agree. So final score-wise, where do you think you're coming down on?
I'm going to come in at a 7.5. I think that this was a fun game. I don't think that it blew me out of the water roll and write wise, but I think that it's a solid, good roll and write with some good cascading. It has the player powers, very much enjoy that, or the employees. I keep calling them the wrong name. But the employees are great. The dice drafting is very much what it is in Grand Austria Hotel, and that's something that I've always enjoyed. So I think that it's a good, solid 7.5.
For me, it's also a 7.5. Okay. I have the same thoughts where there's a little bit missing, and yet at the same time, this does a great job at what it's trying to do. So I can't fault it for that, but I can't give a higher score. And it might be just my bias of the original Grand Austria Hotel is a 9 for me. It is a game that I love, despite the fact that everyone universally complains that it's too long at 4 players. And this one won't be. So if
there you go.
I could see this fitting the shelves of many people who are like, I want to get some of those feels, but I don't want to spend like 2 hours waiting to draft my second die in the original game. So I think this is a good roll and write game. I have fun with it. And so, that's a seal of approval, a recommendation from both of us. And I bet you might even like it more if you don't have the baggage from the original game. Or should I say, luggage.
I wonder. I really wonder.
Yeah, curious about that. So anyway, there you go. That's our thoughts on high season, the Grand Austria Hotel Roll and Write. My name is Chris Yi.
I'm Wendy Yi.
And Jimi Hendrickson.
Still going.